Nicole Cupido,
Yes,
welcome
thank
to
you
the
so
lovely
much.
Founders Collective.
Thank you.
My name is Anna. I'm the host of this epic podcast. I also own the Bodoni Group, which is a lovely creative marketing agency for luxury and premium fashion, beauty, and lifestyle brands. I'm so excited to have you on the session today.
Thank you so much.
I'm really just keen to talk about kind of lifestyle marketing. You have expansive experience in hotel marketing as
Yeah.
well. I know that you've been a manager for a number of the marketing positions for a number of hotel brands, which is
Yes.
epic. And at the moment, you're a senior marketing manager for
Yes.
the Hilton London cluster. Is that
No, the
correct?
Marriott hotels.
There we go.
Marriott hotels. Yes.
Marriott.
But yeah, my experience not only just in hospitality, but I started out my career in beauty actually.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I started out in beauty when I was in my final year of school,
right.
and I didn't really know. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do.
Mm,
I just took a gap year, finished final year of school, had a gap year, and I worked with some beautiful beauty brands.
lovely.
And yeah, obviously, then I wanted to be a makeup artist, I wanted to become a dentist, all of these wonderful things. But when I started working in beauty,
Yeah.
what intrigued me was how people buy these brands.
Mm.
And
The
then I
science
wanted
behind
to,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
then I wanted to be involved in the behind the scenes inspiration for people to buy into these beautiful brands.
Yeah.
And I think that's still very relevant for me today in
Mm.
being in the hospitality industry is how do you inspire travel before the person even or the traveler even decides to buy?
Yeah.
So how can you influence that decision with the brands that you work for?
And a lot of that has to do with like the psychology behind it as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Because that marketing is all about the psychology, and
Yeah.
like you say, before they even click book on your
Yeah.
website, how do you get them to make that decision,
Yes.
which is so key. Whether it's building FOMO, whether it's partnerships or
Absolutely.
giving some sort of exclusivity, I think that
Yeah.
is so core in the industry of marketing, whether you work in like the lifestyle, so hotel, franchise, or beauty, fashion. I think they all have that core element of trying to persuade the consumer to make that decision.
Yes. Correct.
So it's quite exciting, I think,
It is. It is. And that's what inspired my love for marketing was like really wanting to be involved in that influence and inspiring travel and FOMO and
Yeah.
aligning with I think that really influences that aligns with our brands and
Yes.
people, travelers telling the story of the experience at your hotel because it was so personalized. And I think that is where the industry is going, those personalized experiences because
Yeah.
there's so much choices out there. And it's all about how do we stand out as a business, as a brand? What can we do for our guests to ensure that they come back? What can we do to be placed where shoppers are buying at the moment? I mean, there are millions of hotels across the globe.
There is, yeah.
And so it's just about, I think, staying relevant within the marketing landscape.
Yeah, that's so true. Because I feel like whether you work in beauty, fashion, or lifestyle, there's constantly a new hype. And
Yeah.
so being relevant it can be really hard at times, but
Yeah.
it also it makes us ambitious because we are constantly on our feet, right? Thinking of
Yes.
what we can do that's the next best and big thing.
Absolutely.
And you touched on influencer marketing. We'll come on to that in a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But I feel like influencers have become such a key role in helping us to portray what the hotel scene, for example, looks like behind the scenes and what
Yes.
people can look forward to experience.
Yes.
I myself, I follow a ton of influencers,
Yeah.
part of the job, but it's just nice to get that kind of BTS and see how hotels make people feel special when they do
Yes.
come into the hotel
Yeah.
for their personal experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be excited to touch upon that really
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
I wanted to start off with a new segment called What's in Your Bag. I feel like
Yeah.
Vogue for doing this.
Yes, yes.
But I feel like, what I was thinking before I planned to have this? When you go out with your friends and on a night out or a lovely restaurant, and you go into the bathroom and you're touching up on your makeup, and then, someone opens their bag, they're getting out their lip gloss and maybe
Yeah.
like a new iPhone case.
Yes.
Like, oh, where did you get that from?
Yes,
And that,
yes.
that kind of shows you a bit more of their personality.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start off with going through our bags,
Okay.
and seeing what you got in there.
Yeah.
You can go first.
Perfect. Let's see what's here. So obviously my little makeup bag.
That's
It's not,
mandatory.
yes, not
Yeah.
a full makeup bag. It's like has a little bit of a powder.
Okay.
Obviously
Love
lip
a
gloss,
powder.
very important.
Key. I'm so glad you're a lip gloss queen because so
Yes,
am I.
lip gloss, very important. And then my hand cream, which I cannot live without. This
That's
is
good.
the only brand that I use.
What one
I
is
swear
that?
by it. It's the L'Occitane.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's the for the dry skin because I've got eczema on my hands, and it
Yeah.
has shea butter, which is perfect.
Shea butter's the best.
Yes, and then obviously a bit of a MAC,
MAC.
lipstick, and then I've got a like a daily just work lipstick as well because
You
the color is
go-to?
easy. Yes,
Ah.
color is quite easy,
Nice.
and my AirPods.
Mandatory. Like we cannot live without our headphones, especially
AirPods,
on journeys. You've been on a long journey to
important.
get here, so
Very, very important.
I just don't know what it was like to travel without music. I can't remember when I last did.
I know.
Don't know if that's a problem.
I love listening to podcasts as well, and then so I love listening to podcasts around productivity.
Yeah.
One of the biggest podcasts that I listen to is Ali Abdal's productivity
Oh, nice.
podcast, and just kind of helps with doing little things on how to be more productive. What else do I have?
What else
My
is in
Oyster
that
card, which I regard as my car keys in London.
That's a good way to put it.
And then obviously my phone.
Yes.
And I do have a bit of a
It's good to
painkiller
have
here
that in
today.
case.
Yes, and
See,
that's
with me, I always forget about the painkillers and I always end up asking one of my friends. But that is so good that you're
Yeah.
one of those people
Yeah,
for other people as well. If you know what I mean.
exactly.
Nice. I mean,
Yeah,
I can
that's
go.
me.
I can go through mine. It's not as exciting, I don't think, as yours. So my little handbag here, it's quite small, but I feel like I fit quite a few things in it.
Yes.
So obviously, I've got my wallet with all my cards and
Yeah.
all of that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I take a little perfume with me too.
Oh,
This
that's a good idea.
today's one was Miss Dior, which
Ooh.
I absolutely love. I've been using it for like a couple of
So
years,
fresh.
and it's so tiny. I can put it anywhere.
Yeah.
So again, this will be a surprise because it's such a small bag, and I've got loads of. This is my vitamins, daily vitamins, in
Oh,
case I
good.
leave the house and I don't have time to take them.
Good.
Self-care.
Yes, important. Very important.
Oh, I've got this really mashed up powder. But what I will like to say about this is the Maybelline Fit Me. It's almost a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury one, the flawless filter.
I see. Okay.
But I don't like to use the word dupe much because I like to give respect to brands and like
Yes.
not try and find a cheaper version.
Yes.
But I had to get this last minute when I ran out, and it's literally the same, honestly.
Oh,
And it's
wow,
like,
amazing.
yeah, it's so cheap.
I've
so
got a
good.
Maybelline powder as well.
Do
by the
you?
way.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
And then I just have a bunch of like lip liners, mostly kind of like dark red and like a brown lip liners because I feel like they make good bases.
Yeah.
Just some car keys.
Yes.
And then obviously, as you did,
Absolutely.
I had to have my lip
needed.
gloss.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter if it's summer or winter or autumn or
Always.
spring.
Yes, mandatory.
It is key. Okay. So yeah, nice, really nice stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess now we're talking a bit more about personality. I wanted to know a bit more about kind of ways in which that you bring your personality into work and how you might blend it into your kind of day-to-day job.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think over the years, as you grow as a human, as a being, your style of work changes, your personality
Definitely.
changes. So I think where I was a lot more creative and I kind of go with the flow, and I'm a lot more structured now, because I manage a team, and there's so many hotels and there's so many things to do. So
Yeah.
I bring a lot of structure to my work, but I also find that I do that in my personal life now.
Okay.
So really plan out my schedule for the weekend, have a kind of a set time for cleaning, for self-care, for going to church, for all of those things. So really bringing that to the table, and also understanding, when you're working with so many people and stakeholders, that you also have to be really aware of other people's personalities who you
True.
are working with in the same space and sharing spaces with. So yeah, I think I've become a lot more structured over the years, and
Right.
that is what I bring to the table now. And then I also enjoy being creative. I love content creation. I love putting strategies together. I love kind of, working out where are we going, what are we doing, and how we're going to get there, and then reporting back on that.
I also admire the reporting side.
Yeah.
I feel like that's still something that I mean, I can just speak for like organizations in London are kind of starting to do, reflecting on those efforts and making sure we're consciously making a record of what, our efforts have brought back to us. So yeah, that's quite key.
So that creative, taking initiative and sometimes, understanding that things are not always black and white, or you sometimes have to take initiative, sometimes you have to be quite flexible.
Yeah.
So that's quite key. In my personal life as well, I mean, you have to be flexible in life. You have to be able to move and grow, and there's so many trends, there's so many things happening out there. I mean, 4 months or 3 months ago, I moved from Cape Town to London, and I had to do that all within the space of 1 month, and I had to just,
Big change.
Kind of be flexible and do it, and then, so
Yeah. So taking it kind of, like you're saying, being more open to things, but also making sure that there's structure there.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And that's kind of how you've kind of developed as a person, but also in your work life as well. Cool.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna add to that and say, I mean, I feel like when I first joined the industry, this was years ago in marketing. I think I first started to work for a finance company, and from then until now, I have changed so much. I feel like I'm a completely different person.
Absolutely.
Which is nuts. Like, I'm like, what? That was like, if I met that person, I would never think it was me.
Never.
Do you know what I mean?
Never.
But yeah, because I remember back then I was quite chilled. I was going with the flow. So similar to what you're saying, extremely going with the flow. I wouldn't say not taking things seriously, because I was always driven and passionate and wanted to get somewhere, always. But I was very laid back, and if something didn't happen, I'd be like, okay, whatever, it's fine. But I think from then on now, I feel like I've seen the same thing in myself. You're talking about like having a structure, because you see the benefits of it.
Correct.
To yourself.
Yes.
And I feel like we only have a certain amount of time on this earth. So why waste time when you can devote it to certain key kind of chapters or, areas of your life?
Yes.
So yeah, I just wanted to say I feel like I've developed in the same way as kind of you're mentioning with yourself. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think also, when you just start out, that I think that going with the flow could also be seen as just learning. There's so many soft skills as well as technical acumen. But those soft skills, I think, is the biggest thing that I could see growth on, like the emotional intelligence and the kind of business acumen and how you deal with people, how you speak to people, how you conduct yourself. Those are the kind of things that you don't just know off the bat when you just start a job. So I think that really is your learning stages. And then kind of as you grow in your career, then you kind of plan it out a bit more, which is the structure for us now.
And you can never predict, if you think about your first job in marketing, you can never predict how you will change. You just think everything's just going to stay the same, and you just never know how it's going to go. But you're right. I think it's nice to also be easy on ourselves when you look back and think, actually, the hyper inner critic should calm down a little bit, because we were just so do I. Yeah, I think, but yeah, back then I feel like I agree. It was all about kind of absorbing mostly, wasn't it, than knowing everything inside out.
Yes, absolutely.
In your opinion, how much personality do you think is too much personality in the workplace? Now, you're a lovely, senior marketing manager. As you say, you have people that work for you as well in the Marriott. So, what do you think is too much personality in the workplace?
I think, there's a boundary, a professional boundary when it comes to work. I can't really, be exactly the same person as I can't behave exactly the same as I would at home, at work, because there's a professional element. I think too much personality could be when you want everything to go your way, and kind of forcing people to conform to how you want to manage. I think it's critical that everyone that works in a team, everyone's personalities has to be considered. We need to understand how the other people work. We work with so many stakeholders. So I think too much personality could be where you just want everything to go your way.
Yeah.
Or you are a bubbly person and you bring so much bubbles to the workplace that you forget to be professional, for example. So I think that comes along with the soft skills.
I agree.
So yeah, and just being aware of other people's personalities who you work with.
I'm laughing quietly to myself because I think we've all come across someone that has had that nature in the workplace. You know, with, like you said, I think it's a lot to do with having boundaries, but also being able to scan the room.
Yeah.
You know, so if you are in a room and full of professionals, I think bubbly is fine, but there's a limit to that.
Yes.
You know, and it has to be a good balance of professional
Yes.
versus
Yes.
being a chatterbox, gossiping, telling your life story to everyone. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we do come across these characters here and there, and I think, yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice. People that are, you know, maybe coming out of uni and want more kind of advice on how to, you know, conduct themselves in the professional workplace, or if you're kind of a founder or, you know, starting up a new business and you want to maintain a nice professional environment. I think it's important to consider these elements when you are kind of looking for a new employee, or trying to build just a nice professional environment in general. So, yeah, I think these kind of things are not really spoken about that much.
Yes.
And I think for me personally, the reason why I wanted to speak about this is because I think for a number of years I've been in jobs where there have been these kind of personalities, but people have been afraid of putting them on the spot or kind of getting them in trouble by snitching on them. And it's just this kind of whole discussion around snitching and in the workplace. And I think, yeah, some people do get away when they have these kind of personalities, you know, and it does disrupt other people when they are in the workplace. And
Absolutely.
and it also, you got to consider that there are people that are introverted versus extroverted, and just because you might have those different personalities does not mean you are less, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, this podcast is all about speaking about these things that
Yeah.
we are afraid to, you know, voice. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm glad that you feel the same way about this.
Yeah, and I'm so lucky, you know, I work for an organization that really takes things like mental health very seriously. We've got really good kind of take care initiatives, business councils, you know, people that really, it's really an organization where you feel okay, but also like okay to speak about things, but also, you know, there's still, it's a very professional environment. And
That's great.
I think that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So taking it back to you, could you give us a bit of a whistle stop tour, so to speak, of your career to date, just in a few bullet points?
Yeah, like I said, you know, I started out in the beauty industry, not really knowing what to do, wanted to be a makeup artist, worked for a few beautiful beauty brands. And then I decided, that was my deciding point for studying marketing.
Yeah.
I then did my national diploma in South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa. My degree,
Beautiful place.
Cape
That's
Town.
like on the list for me.
Yes, stunning
Stunning.
place. So I was born and bred in Cape Town. And then in my final year of studies, I got a job at an infrared heating company. So from
Okay.
beauty to an infrared heating company, it was a startup.
So quite
Amazing,
different.
very different
Yeah.
startup. Amazing, 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 amazing people. That's where I got introduced to the world of digital marketing.
Okay.
Not just the theory side of things, but actually practically doing it.
Yeah.
So I always had a keen interest for digital since then.
Mm.
Then I came to London, a bit worked for a magazine, and then went back to South Africa. And then I did a few kind of marketing stints here and there. And then I found hospitality.
Ah, okay.
Or shall I say hospitality found me. When I went for my interview in the hospitality industry, I didn't know which role I was interviewing for. The second interview, I found out that it was the marketing manager role for the hotel.
Oh, really?
And I said, of course I was a marketing manager before. Never was. And then, yeah. From there, it was just hospitality, still is. Worked at a few 4-star, 5-star hotels in South Africa.
Wow.
And then I moved into the digital side of our business in South Africa as well, at our Cape Town regional office.
Yeah.
before heading over to London, still in hospitality, one of my personal and career growth goals was to work for Marriott in London. So that's ticked off the list now. I need new goals now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that has been my career journey. Um, Strategic marketing plans, strategic marketing events, influencer marketing, content creation. I've been quite lucky to be involved in quite a large aspect of the marketing landscape, which has been phenomenal so far.
Oh, congrats,
Yeah,
for
thank
meeting
you.
that big goal that you wanted to achieve,
Yeah, thank you.
That sounds really amazing. And it's kind of, nice to hear how you were given the opportunity and the funny situation where you mentioned, that you were asked if you had that experience before,
Yeah.
but you were like, yeah.
I just
And
had
now
to
look
wing
at
it.
you, senior
I just
marketing
had
manager
to wing
at
it.
Marriott.
But also,
Amazing.
again, very lucky to be in a organization that has so much support, mentors. I believe in having a mentor. I still have a mentor. I probably will always have a mentor,
Yeah.
people that you can lean on.
What do you look for when you think of a mentor in the workplace, or even if it's outside?
I think someone who I look up to, someone that's not just good at their job, but someone who is a good leader, for me is important. It's not really for me about just technically being able to do your job, but it's about that leadership skills. Those are the kind of mentors that I gravitate towards at the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not about also having the biggest title in the business. You know, you could have a mentor that works alongside you, but someone who's really good at something that you want to be good at as well, or an area that you need to work on. So it's not always about having a mentor that's a vice president of a company for me. It's those people, who's also had an amazing career journey, who's had learning curves, who's had failure, who's had stumbling blocks. So for me, all of those things are quite important for me as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like it's not only kind of looking upwards, it could be lateral, when you're looking for a mentor, someone to inspire you.
Yeah.
And I just believe like even if it is someone kind of like that's lateral to you, they could have other personal skills, interpersonal skills that you may not necessarily have. So whether it's, I don't know, presenting or being able to speak in front of hundreds of people, or, if they kind of have worked for a very long time with influencers and you haven't per se.
Exactly.
So it's not just the technical things like, you've also mentioned as well. It's interpersonal skills, how people have built relationships with others, decision making, negotiation. Those are so key to what we do in marketing. So that's quite interesting that you mentioned that. And thank you for sharing, your lovely career to date. Taking it to childhood. So childhood carves who we are intricately to who we are today, right? And I read somewhere when I was reading a bit of child adolescent psychology that up to the age of 5 years old, every human being is almost in a situation where they are constantly just soaking everything that their parents are speaking, doing, saying constantly.
Yeah.
Because essentially they are breathing everything into their body that the parent is teaching them. Subconsciously as well, might I add. So stuff like that, I think really kind of builds our morals and our values, and indirectly makes us who we are today. So just touching up on childhood in general, what was it like for you growing up?
Youngest of 3 girls, mom, dad.
So you were the spoilt one.
I
then.
was a little bit. I was my mom's little baby, but my sisters are not. The gap isn't that big. Like my elder sister, I think, is 5 years older than me, and the second eldest one's only 2 years older than me.
So quite
we
close
became
in range.
friends. Yeah, like we became friends. We really had the same friendship circles. Went out together. So I always had a bit of protection. Went, got each other at schools and stuff. So luckily, the gap wasn't that big, so we could be friends.
Oh, that's lovely.
Very close with my extended family, like cousins. We 8 cousins together, so it was very close-knit families. I think people, from South Africa are like that. We would have like a braai on a weekend, and everyone gets together. We call it a braai, but it's just a barbecue.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would get together. So lots of time spent with my aunts and uncles and cousins. And so very family oriented, very close to my sisters, very close with my parents, very Christian kind of background,
Right.
very routine driven. My parents believed that when you go to school, you stay at one school, and then you go to secondary school and you finish at. So very kind of, my parents really believed in stability and not big on travel. So when I always wanted to move out of the house, my mom probably thought I'm crazy, because it's not really something that people do from Cape Town.
Yeah.
You kind of grow up there and you stay, and you kind of get married and have kids and all of those. But I've always wanted to do something different. I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to have a career, and do all those kind of things. Because I think, I've seen a lot of females lose themselves in becoming wives and moms. And for me, my individuality was still very important and is today.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my kind of upbringing, my childhood, basically.
That's so lovely.
Yeah.
It sounds like you definitely had like a solid family unit.
Massively.
And it's so nice that you were, practically best friends with your sisters.
Yeah.
Doing everything together. Such a lovely bond.
Yeah.
That's quite key, I think, because you mentioned stability and that kind of bounces into that theme, which helps to propel you for bigger, greater things and confidence, when you are older and you are in such big roles, changing, the streams in marketing and being such a key stakeholder in the industry. I think having like a solid support system behind the scenes is really key. So that's quite interesting to hear. I mean, as part of that question, I was going to ask you who you look up to, if it is someone in your family, and why, if there is someone.
I mean, I've had quite a few mentors in my career, in my personal life. Currently, I work with a mentor who I worked with in South Africa, and she's been my leader for actually a short time, but that time I think was the most impactful time because of her leadership.
Right.
She's so open-minded. So she started with the same company as I did. She moved away. She came back. When she moved away, she worked for a startup as well. So she came back with just this refreshed kind of forward-thinking mentality, which for me is so key. It was all about work-life balance. It was strong on mental health. It was strong on looking after yourself. If looking after those things that cannot be replaced, because at work, I mean, you are replaceable, but at home, you're not that replaceable. So
absolutely.
I think she's definitely a big one. Definitely look up to my mom big time as well. Sacrificed a lot to get us to where we want to be. Biggest cheerleader that's ever been,
can't be a mum.
biggest
support.
cheerleader. So lots of people, and I take from all my relationships the parts that I want to take.
I think that's quite important, because we do meet dozens of people growing up in our lifetime, and each of them almost add a bit to our personality, if that makes any sense. Because we're so infatuated by their great influence and whatever positive trait that they have, where we're like, right, I want to have something similar. And so that's how we become unique, you see, because we add all of those bits to our puzzle and carry ourselves through life that way. So in terms of your current personality traits, are any of them in particular influenced by your childhood?
I think they're influenced by a series of things and a series of life experiences. I did 16 personalities, the 16 personalities test just yesterday.
Yeah.
And I found out that I was I think it's called an advocate. And it means that I love working alone. I am a bit introverted. I love, after a long day, I love going home and just decompressing by myself. So the more I'm with people, it kind of, that drains my energy, whereas some people are kind of, energized by having a lot of people around them. Where for me, it's different. And I think when I was younger, it was like that for me, where I just wanted to be out. I just wanted to have people around me.
Yeah.
Whereas now I love spending time with myself. I love those intimate moments with one person. Like, I've got a very good friend, Marriot'S, and, just the two of us going to
Having
a little
a
wine
coffee,
farm,
yeah.
we don't have a lot of coffee. We do have more wine than coffee.
Wine then.
But like having those kind of one-on-one
Intimate
sessions,
conversations,
having those kind of intimate moments with my sisters and their kids, and all of us just being together, and everyone being able to really just be themselves without any boundaries. The kids are loud, we are loud, the guys are having a barbecue outside. Whereas, like I said, when I was younger, it was very different, where I had like 50 friends and all of them had to see me on the weekend, or I had to see all of them on the weekend. Where it changed so much now, where I just really enjoy my own time, my own space, walking in London and just getting lost. Just exploring myself. I think getting to know myself for me is quite important. And spending time with people who are quite important to me.
And spark joy in you, you know? I think it's important to also recognize how everyone has their own frequency of energy. And either they add to it or they can take away from it. So it's important to have that radar consistently when you meet people and you decide whether you want them to be part of that intimate kind of life of yours. So interesting that you mentioned that, because I think it goes back to saying, essentially your personality traits may not directly be the same as, you'd once considered if they were influenced by your childhood. And in fact, you can become someone completely uniquely different. And it's interesting you did the 16 personalities, because so did I a month ago, and I also got advocate. And I was stunned, because a lot of my friends and family think I'm extroverted, which I feel like I am to an extent. Like, I do love to speak to people, and I feel like I'm the type of person, if there is kind of like an awkward silence, I'll be the one that fills in, because I just feel like I have to just say something. But at the same time, I do really crave and need that alone time to recharge, so I can do it all again.
Decompress, get yourself together. And for me, a Sunday is important, where I don't really want to be with anyone else but myself or like my really close family, just for that reason. And I also learned, that I am a lot more compassionate, where I wasn't like that in my past, like really compassionate, really thinking about other people. And for me now, like when I was younger, for me it was only about getting to that manager role, doing this, doing that, getting to the next role, getting a higher salary. Whereas now, the people who I'm surrounded by, I want them to do good as well. Like, what can I do to see them grow? Where can I help them? For me, that's so important now, that kind of HR element of things. There's so many people in the hotel industry that express their interest in marketing to me. And for me, it's thinking about how can we get them involved, from a food and beverage, what they're doing now, from a food and beverage associate, to how can we get them involved in social media. At the end of the day, they know the hotels better than I do, because they're there every day. They see the clients, they see the guests, they see the guest profile. Whereas I necessarily don't really get to see those things. Yes, I've got the marketing acumen. Yes, I've got the social media acumen and all the numbers. But they are on the floor, they're in the firing line, they are right there with our guests. So, how can we kind of incorporate them into the marketing world as well? Because I think we can also learn from everyone.
1,000% agree with you. I think it's a holistic approach, isn't it? Like seeing how other teams can also hone in on kind of marketing and marketing strategy. Because you're right, like if there are other, which there are, other teams that work closely with the consumer, that is intelligence right there that we need, to deliver excellent customer service.
For example, if we're running a breakfast campaign, yes, we can see numbers, but sometimes, we can't always track conversions because of the campaign could be just targeting people to walk in. So we don't see conversion rates. But those are the people who can tell you, oh, our breakfast has been busy. And we don't know why, but then I can say, because we've had a targeted campaign towards people walking in for breakfast. So that is absolutely, it's like real life intelligence right there.
Exactly. And the conversations that they have, instead of, tracking feedback or waiting on, reviews, they're right there in the flesh speaking to the consumer directly. Absolutely. And they're at the center point of all of the stuff that we do. So it's really nice to hear that you consider it more than just, yourself and your direct marketing team, and you want to encourage and include other people. because I think that's when you get like a really good solid strategy, don't you? When it encompasses everyone, and it doesn't make anyone feel left out.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's really special.
Yeah.
So back to your professional life then. I guess we already covered this a little bit, but why was it marketing specifically? I know you said you started in beauty and they kind of just went with the flow.
Yeah.
What is it about marketing that just sparks your joy, that gives you fireworks in your veins? Like, what is it that just makes you think, oh, this is the industry for me?
I think for me at the moment, it's definitely the industry itself, the hospitality industry. When I walk in a hotel, especially after COVID, during COVID, everything dried up. There was no business. No one was traveling. So our hotels were empty.
Yeah, it hit quite
And
hard.
it was so sad to see, like the hotel I worked at the time in Cape Town was closed for 6 months. We had to shut our doors because it was more expensive to keep it open than to have it closed, and closed down. And I remember our office was on the floor where all the meeting rooms were.
Yeah.
And for months and months, when the hotel reopened, for months and months, there was just no one on that floor, no more guests. Gosh. And I remember one day, it was last year, I walked into the hotel and I was like, wow, that energy of travel was back. The sound of the cups at the back in the distance, the coffee machine grinding the beans, the steps, the front desk, people coming in with their suitcases. Travel was there. And when I look at Pinterest or Instagram and I see these travel stories or new hotels, I get so excited because, for me, that content creation gets me up in the morning. Creating content that guests can interact with, that corporates can interact with, that groups can interact with. That is really what gets me up in the morning. And looking at your return on investment, looking at your conversion rates, looking at what a post did or a reel did on Instagram, looking at a influencer campaign and seeing it actually work, for me is just amazing. Like I remember we had an halal kitchen in we just opened or launched a halal kitchen in South Africa because the precinct I worked in didn't have many halal options. And we opened a halal kitchen, and the more I was posting about this halal kitchen from the hotel page, no interaction.
Right.
Once I started an influencer campaign targeted to share stories about kind of, we've got a halal kitchen, and other people started speaking about it, then we just saw momentum.
Exploded. Wow.
Then it just exploded. So oftentimes, we speak about, oh, this is a beautiful hotel. But when other people can share authentic stories about your hotel and the authentic experience that they had, I think it makes it so much more credible.
It's different, right? Because it almost synthesizes it in a way where it's more relatable when it is coming from another human being,
Yes.
Even though it is a human being that's steering that company page.
Yeah.
When you see another person, it being an influencer, comment on their personal experience, what they like, what they don't like, their opinion is what they want at the end of the day.
Yes.
And when you see that as an individual, I think that's when your values and your morals align, right? More easily. So I think that's a key point. And like I said earlier, I think influencers are paving the way to, the lovely conversions that we're seeing at the moment.
Absolutely.
For different industries. So
important.
Yeah.
It's the world we live in, it's always evolving, always moving forward. And what are we doing as marketers to stay on top of, or to stay kind of abreast of what's happening in the space?
Do you think, just your own personal opinion, do you think influencer marketing will stay in the foreseeable future? Or do you think it's something that's kind of limited to a couple years?
I don't know. For me, it's about, we're going to have to kind of wait and see what happens. But I think influencer marketing has become very tailored over the years. As opposed to where it started and where we are now. You get those nano influencers, you get, certain campaigns that you work on. And yes, sometimes it's not needed. Influencers are not needed for a campaign. But we do see quite a bit of pickup when influencers are included.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if AI will take over influencers, but for
The
now
conversations,
I can, yeah,
the whispers.
but for now I can definitely, I see why it's so important,
Yeah.
and I can definitely see it for being very relevant for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, because their work is quite impactful.
Yeah.
And when you, as part of your kind of lovely luxury hotel, decide to recruit influencers for campaigns,
Yeah.
what are the top couple of things that strike you from an influencer before you kind of onboard them? Like, what do you look
Yeah.
for? This is for any kind of influencers that are out
Yeah.
there that are looking to work with hotels
Yeah.
and lifestyle brands.
For me, it's, an influencer can have 1.2 million followers, but who are those followers? Who is the influencer? Does the influencer align with the brand that I'm working for?
Yeah.
Will the influencer align with the campaign that I'm working for? Is it an influencer in the same space? And what is the engagement rates? Are they speaking to the market that I want to speak to? Or are they speaking or are they influencing a market that I necessarily can't but really want to influence? So I think that is important, that brand alignment for me is key critical. Making sure that you're speaking to the correct market for me.
Okay. I mean, it's nice to know that it is not just the numbers for you, it's the values and the essentially the engagement and the morals between yourself and your organization and the influencer.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as having a minimum number of followers that you guys look at, or is it just mainly the vibe that you get from the influencer? I mean, I know it's not like, 10 followers and we'll get you and, know. Come on board.
Like, 10,000 and up, but like I said, it's not for me necessarily about the number, but it's about which spaces is that influencer moving in, and who are they speaking to, and do they have real followers? So what's their kind of engagement rates? For me is important.
No fake followers around here.
No fake followers. Jeez, man. Yeah. And just, what segment, if it's a lifestyle campaign, is it a lifestyle influencer? Like going back to the halal kitchen, for example, the hotel wasn't necessarily reaching those markets. So, the influencers in that space could speak directly to the people that were following them. So for me, it's really about that. And yes, you can have paid ads and geo-targeting and all those things. But for me, it's about the quality and who that person's speaking to. It's not really about the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important, so that you can actually align very well with the influencer, and the audience that you need essentially is there, the one that you want to reach out to. Make sure it's the correct audience and your message to live as well, right?
Yes.
So still speaking about social media and followers and stuff, I wanted to come and talk to you a bit more about Instagram and the blue tick responsibility.
Yeah.
So as you may have seen, practically anyone can purchase themselves a blue tick. And that kind of, makes them almost like an official, Instagrammer, and gives them this lovely, luxurious looking lifestyle, right?
Yes.
Even if you've got like 5 followers, you can get one. What do you think about responsibility and being responsible once you have that blue tick? Because like I said, people will see your profile and might, think that you are someone that stands out to others. And like I said, just seen as in a distinct light, could be in more of a special light to other profiles. So I just wanted to get your thoughts a bit more about all things blue tick.
All things blue tick. Look, for me, because it's so accessible now to everyone, does it take away its credibility? For me, that is questionable, first of all. Then I read up on some of the benefits of having the blue tick. So one of the benefits is like, if you have the blue tick, it means that you're an actual person and that's the official account. So I think when it comes to being an influencer or a celebrity, for example, the blue tick is important. I don't think, however, a blue tick is going to make a massive difference to an hotel page. I don't think anyone's going to open an hotel page and act like it's an hotel. But I do think that people clone influencers and, to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily yet, or I don't see why it's important for a hotel page. But I do see why an influencer maybe wants to get that. And also you get some protection, like it's more protected. So I think there are benefits to having a blue tick. But I think it has a place. I think depending on what industry you're in and what business you do, I think there's a place for the blue tick.
And do you think people that do get the blue tick that aren't, like you're saying, the influencer, the celebrity, should they be posting more consciously, knowing that they've got this blue tick and people might be seeing their content? Or do you think they shouldn't have to worry too much about what they post? Not that anyone should not worry about what they post, but...
Yeah. Probably, like you're now verified, and so I would think that they would have to be a bit more conscious about what they post. Just from a kind of Instagram perspective as well.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with that. I think, first of all, the blue tick definitely gives a sense of like cybersecurity, especially for people that are in the limelight, right? So like you're saying, the celebrities, the influencers. But I also then again question why an ordinary person would want to get the blue tick.
Yeah.
I think it's just an ongoing conversation at the moment as to why it is a priority for those that don't really require it as much.
I think, once you understand the benefits of the blue tick, then probably yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think I would get the blue tick because maybe, yes, I don't see the benefit for myself, but I could see it for beneficial for an influencer or a celebrity, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just about understanding those benefits, and I also don't see why a normal person who's not really into social media wants to get a blue tick.
Exactly. Unless you're like on the rise and you're like, right, I'm going to start posting and I want to become an influencer.
Yeah, so I want to become a content creator.
Yes.
Different story.
That's a different story.
So there is definitely a place for it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think with the blue tick, that does give people more of it's a hard hitting statement, but like a bit of a social responsibility.
Yeah.
Because, you've got like this following, so to speak, and you've got this blue tick now. Some people do look up to you and what you do, and they, check your stories daily, Some people wake up and that's their routine.
Yes.
They'll wake up and they have their top 3 influencers.
Yeah.
They want to know what they're getting up to every day, what's their morning routine, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's how they genuinely, it's like how we discussed earlier, how growing up we kind of take off a bit of other people's traits that influence us growing up. It's the same thing with these digital influencers.
Yes.
People are watching them and they are chipping away at their personality and taking it away with them.
Yep.
So, I think in that sense, the blue tick does have a crucial part in social responsibility. Yep. But, it's wise words to think about whether you need it or not if you are just
for me, it's just about
visual.
that. Do you really need it? Is it going to make a big difference to your business or to your profile? But I mean, if you want to really become an influencer, then by all means, and then that ties in with the kind of content that you put out there, because people are not going to follow you if you don't put out content that's, worthy of a follow. So,
and I think it's getting difficult at the moment. There's so many influencers out there.
I know.
They're all competing for the follows and the engagement.
I must say that I tried to start a TikTok page on beauty in London, but I just never get time. So I just left it.
Oh, yeah, because I heard the algorithm is very strict nowadays. Like 5 posts a day and you might be able to get to that point of getting consistent follows and engagement.
I just don't have time to create.
Especially when you've got the daytime job. It's like so much harder to find time outside of that with the consistency of starting the own page. But you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Might see you on my TikTok page soon.
And beauty routines and stuff in London. But I did, I think, one facial and then I just left it.
Well, there's always a next time if you get some time or something.
Yeah.
Cool. So going back into professional life then, so relating it to your day job, let's say, how do you hold on to things, and how important is it to let things go for you?
In a work environment.
So if someone's, I don't know, let's say they've had a funny attitude or I don't know, something like that, and you didn't like the way someone spoke to you, or someone didn't hear out your idea fully and you feel like they cut you off, would you hold on to things like that, and how important is it to let things go?
I used to hold on to things.
Are you a Taurus?
No, I'm Virgo.
Also, am I?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Go. My birthday's actually on the 5th on Tuesday.
Oh, happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Happy birthday,
Yeah.
thanks.
I was going to say, because I have a few Taurus friends and they're a bit stubborn. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
So I definitely did hold on to things, but
Okay.
I've learned that calling it out as soon as you can for me is so important,
Yeah.
because when you hold on to things, for me, it just creates an awkward environment,
Mm.
because you holding on to something, the other person has moved on, or maybe the other person didn't even mean it in the way that you received it. So for me, speaking about things is quite important, so that you can gain perspective on what the other person's intention was, or where it came from. In the work environment, it's always about work for me. It will never be personal, and I'll never take anything personal. It's just, Nico, this was not cool that you did. Cool. You know what? Next time, how can we make it better? For me, it's all about, this is the situation that happened. This is my frustration. That is your frustration.
Yeah.
Working that out. I mean, we're all adults in the workplace. And then
Absolutely.
finding ways on how to make it better going forward. And that's really created such a light, kind of, freeing growth. All of those things go along with just speaking about it and being professional and mature about it,
Yeah.
as opposed to holding on to things and building up anger and resentment and frustration. And then everyone's awkward and you don't know why people are awkward. So for me, with my team, key critical feedback is always welcome.
Yeah.
We've got an open door policy on feedback.
That's
I
great.
just joined the London market. For me, it's a culture shock almost every day, something new every single day, because I come from a different world.
Yeah, definitely.
And if my team or if people who work with me are not going to give me feedback, I would never know. So, and vice versa for me, like I need to give them feedback, they need to give me feedback. And we need to together work on how we're going to take it forward.
Yeah.
Because all of us want to be there. All of us we love the company, we love our jobs, we love our work. And I think there's nothing worse than having a toxic, uncomfortable, awkward environment.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it gets to that toxic environment if you let things affect you but not vocalize them.
Yes.
Like that's when, like you said, the feelings of resentment and
Yeah.
anger and frustration build.
Yeah.
And unless you have that two-way conversation, you will not release all of those emotions from your
Yes.
body. And I'm sorry, but in terms of self-care, if you are big on self-care, which you should be, if you let those feelings build up and you don't release them, they do affect your mental health down the
Yeah.
line. They really do.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's really important to have that two-way conversation. But let's say if we've got a few students watching this conversation just now and they have just secured a role for a corporate company and they find themselves in a situation like this, how would you advise them to have that awkward conversation? In their mind, it's like, the most awkward thing they've done and they haven't had this kind of difficult situation at work before. Let's say this person is senior to them and they didn't like the way they spoke to the student. How would you advise someone new in the industry to take those matters into their hands and have that first conversation?
I think we often as humans overthink how people are going to react. The only thing that you can control is how you respond and how you react. You can't really control how your superior is going to take feedback, right? But I think just for me is going up to the person in a respectful way. Hey, can we have 15 minutes, just a quick catch up? And you don't have to go like in all guns blazing, this is what you done and it really upset me. Try and think about what you want to say. Maybe speak to a mentor about just how to kind of go about.
Even write things down, right?
Write it down as well. And then, sit the person down in a calm manner and say, what, this is what you said in the meeting really offended me. And then you sometimes you'll be so surprised that maybe the person didn't even intended, like it wasn't even intended to really hurt you or to offend you, but it just came out the wrong way. And then that person or your superior would then know next time, okay, to maybe not word a sentence like that or, to kind of handle things differently going forward. But for me, it's really just getting it out of your system, clearing the air. And those incidences could really make people want to leave.
Yeah.
And that could have a negative effect on your career with a company, for example. because now someone said something wrong. Then the second time, the third time, you're like, you know what, I had enough, I'm leaving. Then you have to start over with a new organization, and then the same thing happens. So you need to kind of deal with it somewhere along the line. You need to deal with it because you need to then think about your career building blocks. Yeah.
You have to be real with yourself.
Yeah.
I think as much as we can come across these problematic situations, I feel like we have a duty to ask ourselves if we are partaking in this constant, let's say, toxic situation that's happening to us. You know, because the storyline in our heads is it's always happening to us.
Yeah.
And that's just how we're built as human beings, right? That's our natural habitat to think that way. But it is important to ask ourselves, in these situations, these recurring situations, how do we play into our own suffering?
Yeah.
And I think in a situation where we are, for example, like you said, someone's being mean to us or saying something that is kind of making us feel like, you know, down or low or upset, if it's certain things or the way that they're expressing themselves that is affecting us, it is merely just looking at a way we can release that feeling, but in a nice and, you know, mature way.
Yes.
It's the way that you handle it, you know.
Absolutely. So just staying professional about it, you know what, putting time in the person's diary and really just speaking to them about it.
Yeah, but it goes back to personalities and individuality as well, because I know some people may want to, in their head, they might have two ticks. So once, oh my God, I'm angry. Second time, I'm gone.
Yes.
But then they get so heated in the moment, they don't think about the longevity of their career and how it will look in their career history.
Yes.
Because then they look problematic,
young.
right?
Yes, exactly. Especially when you're just entering. I remember when I just started working, I would leave for any given reason, but it's very different today. And I deal with, we all deal with conflict in the workplace. But you have to think about your career as well and how it's going to reflect on your CV if you just move all the time. I used to just leave anytime. I used to live with my parents, so it's fine. I didn't pay any rent, you know. But you need to think about your career at some stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the talk of leaving, are there any situations or boundaries that you would say should kind of cross your mind where you should think, actually, now it's my time to leave a company, regardless of how long you've been there? Is there any boundaries or circumstances you would think, or you would advise even to people for people to kind of think about taking that leap of just leaving the organization?
I think for me it differs from person to person and also where you are at in your life. Sometimes you have to make career moves, be it lateral, be it vertical. That's either best for your career growth or for your family or for, you know, whatever reason. So for me, that's really about where you are in your life and where you are taking your career. Yeah. Sometimes companies are not international. Sometimes where you're based, the organization is only in that region, and then your life happens and you have to move and the organization is not elsewhere.
Yeah.
Then you have to leave. So, yeah, for me, it's just dependent on where you're taking your career. But in terms of conflict and kind of, you know, gossip and things like that, I won't necessarily advise leaving because you need to, like I said, grow your career. And those are things that could be overcome.
Yeah.
You can overcome those kind of obstacles.
And to add to your point, not only grow your career, but also grow yourself as an individual.
Yeah.
You might have been someone growing up, you would have been afraid of conflict, of arguments, of any negative form of conversation. But when you do sit with yourself in that moment and, like I said, you think about, okay, how am I potentially also playing a role in my suffering, let's say in the workplace where I'm constantly having to jump jobs because of arguments, because of whatever the situation might be. But how can I kind of make myself better as an individual and grow from this?
Exactly.
And then you might, you know, test it out by having that conversation once. Then going forward, you'll realize actually conflict is a natural thing. In some situations, it can be a good thing.
Yes.
Because then you get to really learn how to understand other people.
Yeah.
Because everyone will, like, the amount of people that you'll meet in your long career path and journey will be so different to you, completely different morals,
Yeah.
completely different values. And you might disagree with things, but
Yes.
that doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Exactly. That's where you grow. And I mean, for me, right now is, I think, I come from a completely different world, completely different market, working with people that's grown up in a first world country, where I haven't. And, I find people who grew up in London a bit more kind of confident compared to where I come from. So learning all those different personality traits and that we all come from different backgrounds and different walks of life.
Absolutely.
So, and just for me, that is, I can almost feel myself growing just by getting to know these things, overcoming conflict, overcoming, like this is the next thing I need to work on. And it's just phenomenal. I told a friend of mine the other day, I can't wait to see where I'll be next year, this time, as a person, like as a human, how, because it's almost like you can naturally just feel the growth happening, which is amazing. For me, it's an amazing learning curve.
It really is. And when you look back at, how you have developed, whether it's your personality traits, your small obstacles that you've jumped, as an individual and also with support, I think you really just pat yourself on the back. Even if it's kind of just reflecting on, your Christmas dinner, December time, and you look back at the last 12 months, you're like, wow.
I know.
I joined a new company in a different country, you know, I was able to start learning the British humour because it's very distinct. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
But aside that, learning to kind of get involved with a completely different culture, and speak to people from a different culture and many other things. I think it's very rewarding when you sit down after a year and you're like, wow, or even 2 years, every year, people change just like that. We all change. And I think we only get better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a really rewarding feeling.
Absolutely.
Great. And I think just jumping onto another element of kind of your professional life, how do you deal with uncertainty in the workplace?
Yeah.
So, for example, it could be being uncertain about making a particular decision, but at the same time trying not to stagnate while you think about making that decision. So, how would you deal with uncertainty in the workplace?
I would look at if it's going to benefit the organization. And if there are any kind of gray areas, ask the question, or then I would go to my superior and be like, this is the situation. So for me, asking the questions to clear out any uncertainty for me is quite important. In my personal life as well, asking the questions and just being like, really, I don't understand. Please, can you explain it? And if the person can't explain it, then, we're not going to do it then.
Yeah.
Or if there's no gray areas, then yes, sure. Also, I've been with the organization for a long time. And for me, always what's best for the company, if it's going to benefit the organization, then absolutely. But if there are any gray areas, if it doesn't align with what the organization's doing, then unfortunately, no. Yeah.
So it's important to look at, the benefits, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if there are any uncertainties, like you said, grey areas that you don't understand, it's better to ask the question and iron them out. There's an ex-American president, I think, he had a rule of thumb where if you, in your mind, are at least 52% certain, make the decision.
Yeah.
Because as a human being, we will never 100% be certain about anything.
Yes.
We've got that inner critic going on, questioning certain things.
Yeah.
And the more you stagnate as well, sometimes the more it is detrimental to what decision you're trying to make at the same time and the result that you want. So, that kind of correlates with what you're saying. As long as there are many benefits to what you're trying to make a decision on, that should kind of lead the way for you to navigate through that uncertainty. And in a lot of situations, even if you do make a decision, and like I said, if you were like over 50% certain that it will be fine, but then the result is the opposite. In life there are many chances to change that going forward in the future and take an alternate kind of path or route. So
exactly, like I said earlier on, I came to London in 2014, very young, with no proper goals or kind of any clear vision. And I went back to Cape Town after 7 months. Then I was in Cape Town for about 8 years before I came back. But when I came back, I also had to think of, you know, is this the best move for me?
Yeah.
Or is it not? Do I stay in Cape Town? Do I stay with everything that's familiar to me? Or do I take the risk? And what implications that risk would have? And I took the risk, and here I am. And now it's about, you know, I'm a lot older now. I've got a plan and a purpose and all those wonderful things.
Yeah.
But you also kind of get to a point where you've made the decision, and now you have to make it work. Whether things are good or bad, whether you go through certain obstacles, you have to kind of make it work, because that's the decision you made, whether you were uncertain or not. And you just have to kind of make the best of it. Yeah. And that's where I'm at the moment in my personal life.
It's a brilliant point about taking risks, because every small, whether we're crossing the road, you know, in the morning to get to work, or any decision that we make, whether it's a particular breakfast we're having or wider, bigger goals in the workplace, they all carry a sense of risk with them.
Yes.
And then there's always the consequence, isn't there?
Yes.
And then after that, it could change.
Yeah. After that, it could change. And you could kind of also, you know, there's so much possibility, there's so much opportunity in London itself. So, I mean, you can also kind of steer your life in a way that you want it to go.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's all about self-belief as well, isn't it?
And just make those moves, take those risks. And like I knew that, you know, it's not going to be easy, but I knew I would get so much growth from this experience. And like I said, you know, it's been 3 months or going on to 4 months, and I could literally feel the growth almost every day.
Oh, that's amazing. It's the best feeling in the world. It's just all about being bold, you know, and being... We're all fearful of things, but they say success is at the other end of fear. Yeah. You know, so it's pushing yourself even when you yourself might not believe in what the result would be or the outcome would be. So yeah, in your professional journey as well, have you ever been in a situation where it's been difficult to persuade someone to see your vision? And if so, how were you able to change their perspective or negotiate?
Yeah, I think I was turned down many times. I had got no's for answers many, many times. And for me in marketing, it's always about, you know, doing like a mock-up and saying, you know what, let's do this. A lot of people are very stubborn. But I think because marketing is always moving, I was quite lucky that, you know, marketing for me could also be trial and error. Yeah. So even if a general manager, for example, says no to an idea, I think what I've always done is finding another way to do it, because oftentimes it comes down to budget, where there's no budget to do something.
Have no control over that.
Yeah, so finding another way on how to do something that's still quite impactful. Yes, and that's always how I've kind of dealt with it. But because marketing is, and luckily I'm in an organization where people are very pro-marketing. So, yeah, there's been a lot of turndowns and no's, but it's always about, for me, how can we change it then? You saying no, I'm saying yes. How is there a middle ground? And if there's no middle ground, then finding another way. Yeah. Yeah.
So in simple terms, if someone disagrees with your perspective or your idea, it's finding the balance between both your idea and, let's say, the other stakeholder's idea. And if there isn't something that's like deep in the middle, like taking a step back and mocking up like a new, different route.
Different approach, a different route. And for me, if the person then agrees with my idea and it didn't work, then we can say we tried it. And now we know it doesn't work. You know, in the marketing space.
That's what it's about.
It's all about trying it out, testing it out and seeing if it works. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then let's move on.
Yeah. I think, that's why it's so important to just emphasize the fact that marketing is, in a sense, it's quite flexible.
So flexible.
You know, we have it pretty good.
Yeah. And it's always moving. And I think for us as marketers, it's important for us to bring those new trends to the table.
We're the ones that create the trends
Yeah.
at the end of the day. We're the core of this industry, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're the ones that get those products and those services sold. We get
Yes.
those loyal consumers.
Yes, looking at what is the latest trends in digital.
Mm.
Your boss would normally, or maybe not even know about it, but you could be the one doing that market research and saying, hey, this is new to the market, or this is new to the industry. Let's give it a go. You know? So for us, that really, that sits with us, you know, that we need to come up with the new ideas. We need to know what's happening in the market and bring those trends to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we are definitely the change makers in the industry.
Yeah.
And I think it's key to just continue to be on our tiptoes, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's a really inspiring industry to be a part
Yeah.
of, because we will learn from one another.
Absolutely.
When a trend starts, everyone's doing it, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And sometimes results for one organization or industry would work different to the other.
Yes.
Fashion versus beauty versus lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's nice to be such a core element of the changes that we're making at the moment.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a little bit, but work-life balance.
Yes.
So as I mentioned, this podcast is all about openly discussing the things that we may be afraid of speaking about in the workplace, or just, you know, speaking about in general. The idea in society, so to speak, is nowadays is like when you start your own business or you become a very senior stakeholder in your organization, there is more freedom in everything that you do. In your opinion, is this realistic in relation to the work-life balance at work? Are you completely in control? For example, you can't control the emails that you receive or the WhatsApps or your employees or crisis, you know? So, what do you think about the realism of work-life balance, in your opinion?
I think work-life balance is possible, even in an industry that's open 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
It's always going.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that anyone is going to have a complete wobble if I don't answer an email right away. For me, if we don't look after ourselves and our teams, then what's the point of us doing this? You cannot work all the time. You cannot work 24/7 because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You'll be able to do it for the first month because you're so excited that you've got landed this job, but it's not sustainable. And it takes away the joy, especially in a marketing space where you need to be creative and you need to be thinking. If you're not going to be enjoying what you're doing, then there's no point. If you're constantly going to be working, you're going to feel run down.
Burn out.
You're going to burn out.
Yeah.
You're going to end up in a space where you're going to need medical attention. Then there's no point for me. You know, you need to also really enjoy what you're doing. You are replaceable at work. All of us are replaceable.
Preach this.
If, you know, like, I mean, if something
so
happens
true.
to you,
that's it.
in 48 hours, your role is going to be advertised. No matter which organization you work for, that's the reality of life.
Yeah.
Because the business needs someone in your place, right? But your family is not going to find another you. You are irreplaceable with your family. So for me, it's about doing those things that really fill your soul, whether it be learning something new, whether it be a hobby, whether it be whatever it is that you love doing, is for me as important as your job. Because your job is an element of who you are, but it's not all that you
Not your
are.
whole identity.
Yeah, it's not your whole identity. So for me, if people are emailing you, take the emails off your phone. You know, it's about us setting those boundaries. Work-life balance is not the organization's responsibility. Work-life balance is your responsibility.
It's that whole angle of what I mentioned earlier about how do you play a role in your own suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your responsibility to not answer the email because it came through at 11. Answer it tomorrow. No one's going to have... No, nothing's going to happen. I mean, the hotels are still going to be full. The beauty industry is still going to move forward if you are not answering one email. But for me, mental health is so important in the workplace. It's important that we are in spaces where we feel safe to speak about our mental health. It's important to reach out to therapy if you need someone, you know, to talk to, someone neutral to talk to. I don't think there's anything wrong with
Seeking
saying,
help.
seeking help and being vulnerable to those things because life happens. But for me, work-life balance is on you, and you need to know where to draw the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it correlates with just the idea of having boundaries and
Yeah.
letting people know, like, look, even if you got to put it in your out of office, like, hey, after a certain time, I can't pick up emails,
Yeah.
or, letting colleagues know that might WhatsApp you after work hours, like, hey, sorry, I'm like busy after
Yeah.
6 p.m. or something. Because those are the core boundaries that save your mental health,
Exactly.
And like you say, it definitely is our own responsibility to communicate. It's all about communication.
Yeah.
You got to communicate. You got to tell
Yes.
people, like, this is going to work for me and this is not.
Yes.
And your organization, your employer's responsibility is obviously a great part of this, but at the same time, anything after your work hours is kind of your responsibility.
Yeah.
So, I think I definitely agree with your angle on, the fact that you do play such an important role in having that right balance
Yeah.
between work and your personal time.
Yeah.
Because if your work life constantly gets in the way of your personal life, it does lead to detrimental effects on your mental health.
Exactly.
And then who suffers?
Yeah.
Yourself.
Yes, or the people who's
And
very, very close to you.
exactly,
Yeah.
your family, your friends,
Yeah.
and yourself. And yeah, and it all comes down to just, like I said, just relaying what your boundaries are to everyone around you in the
Yeah.
workplace.
And I think, if you take it 10 years ago, the culture generally in the world was, the harder you work, the more
The
successful you
hustle
are.
culture.
The
Yes.
longer hours you work. But actually, how productive are those hours? Are you enjoying what you're doing? And are you actually being productive? Or are you just there because, your boss thinks, or you think your boss think you are amazing because you are there for 12 hours every day? But are you loving your job? Are you bringing new ideas to the table? Are you being productive? For me, those are the things that matter, and filling up your soul with the important things in life.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's such a brilliant point. I
Yeah.
think hustle culture had taken over our lives for a number of years, right?
Yeah. And I think COVID changed that for
Yeah,
us.
it did.
When COVID,
That's a really good thing that came out of COVID.
COVID brought a lot of pain and suffering to a lot of people. It took away livelihoods. I get that. I mean, I work in the hospitality industry. My livelihood was taken away. My mom lost her life to COVID. So COVID has brought so much pain, but COVID taught us so many things.
Yeah.
COVID taught us in the hospitality sector resilience and being flexible. Because then, when COVID hit and travel started coming back, it was almost the guest that could set the tone. They almost could determine what our rates were going to be. Whereas pre-COVID, it was a very kind of, this is it and that's done.
Yeah.
So COVID brought us so much learning. And I think COVID also made us understand how important those people are in your life and how we need to really take care of them and spend time with them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Anything can happen.
That's the thing. And I feel like we can't actually prepare 100% for the moving circumstances, and stuff like COVID could never be predicted.
Yeah.
But there are some good things, like you say, that have come out of it. Stuff like, flexible working as well, which has been so helpful for people and their mental health and their livelihoods. And yeah, I think that's kind of brought on this lessened weight of having that hustle culture on everyone else.
Yeah.
So, and even little things like, because I know you said at the end of the day, we can't work 12 hours a day to impress our boss, right? But ways that we can make ourselves productive, whether it's carving out 20-minute blocks in your emails, to like focus. Yeah,
I love that.
In your calendar to focus on emails, to focus on whatever campaign you're working on, to review analytics, whatever the jazz is. Stuff like that makes you really productive. I think I read a stat somewhere from a report. Again, it was more kind of tailored to psychology in the workplace, where on average, a human being focuses for 25 minutes at a time, and that's it.
Yeah.
And here we are sometimes spending hours and hours at our desk, and some of us do it more than others, but we do find ourselves doing that when we're like, in our focus zone. But at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't really correlate with the level of productivity that we want to attain and achieve.
Yeah.
So, that's quite an interesting point that you made.
Finding those little tools and tricks that work for you,
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So we're coming to the last couple of questions.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure having you on and having
Thank
this
you so
intimate,
much.
kind of chilled convo. It's been so
Yeah.
natural just speaking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Talking about all things kind of lifestyle marketing and also the important bits, like the core element of having influencers involved
Yeah.
in marketing nowadays
Yeah.
and that being on an upwards trend.
Yeah.
In terms of trends then, um, obviously partnerships are a really big role, right?
Massive, eh?
Within hotel marketing and lifestyle marketing.
Yes.
Whether it's partnering with like local restaurants and cafes or like local tour providers and other businesses. Because at the end of the day, hotels can kind of gain valuable exposure to new audiences if
Yeah.
you want to target
Yeah.
a completely
Yes.
different kind of
Yeah.
segment. But also it allows you to connect with consumers in a more personable way as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess I just wanted to know a bit more about the latest trends you've seen while you've been working in the Marriott and anything you'd like to share.
You know what? That is very profound at the moment because the trends that are in London is a bit different to the trends that were, for example, in Cape Town.
Right.
London obviously being a lot bigger in terms of branding. Partnerships are a lot bigger in London as well compared to Cape Town.
Yeah.
And a big trend that I've seen in the London market is those partnerships.
Right.
Massive partnerships. And there are some partnerships we're working on at the moment, some partnerships that we have currently. And as you said, it's really to gain awareness to their markets as well. Really like-minded brands getting on board, working with like-minded brands that targets the kind of same audience or even different audiences. And then here I think rich content. Content for me is king. I love content creation. So it's how do we create those rich content marketing campaigns or pieces. That has been a massive trend. Digital, short videos, reels has just been
They've been a centerpiece,
such a
haven't
hit.
they?
Like really professional, beautiful content that people love to engage with. For me, it's a big trend. The use of artificial intelligence, where does it fit in our business? Where does it fit in marketing? And how can we use it? I was at a talk the other day where someone said people are scared of artificial intelligence taking over their jobs.
Yeah.
But that is not true. We need to actually embrace AI and look at ways on how we can use it to our benefit. If you're not scared to use AI, then AI won't replace you.
Yeah.
So it's always, for me, that message was really moving with the times, moving with what's happening in the marketing landscape and how we can then bring that back into what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So yeah, content, digital, social media, influencer marketing, big trends in 2023 that we'll, I think, probably still see in 2024 as well.
Yeah. So
And those personalization, those hyper-personal content that really speaks to our guests and our markets that we want to reach. Yeah.
yeah, I think I agree. I think partnerships are obviously key nowadays
Massive.
everywhere, whether it's
Yeah.
hotel marketing, whether it's fashion brands,
Yeah.
different brands coming together to create another product, whether it's, beauty brands in the same sense. I think they've been taking over the marketing industry like storm.
Yeah.
And yeah, even AI, I agree. Essentially, because I've had this conversation with a couple of the other guests I've had on previously, but AI can either become your best friend or it can become your enemy,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's about looking at how it can complement our
Yeah.
roles in the marketing industry
Yes.
rather than taking away from it.
Yes.
Because there's some things the AI tools such as ChatGPT can't predict or can't fully describe.
Yeah, because we
give
need
that
to
personal
feed it
touch.
information.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes it needs altering because you need to give it that personal.
Absolutely.
But for me, it's a big time saver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, finally, just on your continuing on your personal opinions, what would you say that has worked very well recently for you in your job in your organization in terms of the latest trends that you might have jumped on?
Yeah, I think it's definitely content creation, digital marketing,
Yeah.
making sure that that content is, showcased in the spaces where our consumers or our market is buying, and having those kind of relatable stories, inspiring travel, for me is quite important, and we do that through the marketing pieces that we put out there.
Mm.
Influencer marketing, massive trend, has been for a while, even in the market that I worked in before. And I can definitely see that gaining momentum, in going forward for the next few years. And let's see what's new.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it's really rich content, and being located or being there when the customers is buying, and being ready to inspire that travel when someone wants to travel, because travel is back, which is amazing.
It's back and it's bad.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Nicole. That was such a insightful, lovely discussion today to have you on the Founders Collective episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna. It was lovely to meet you and to chat to you as well.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And it's nice that we both agree on a lot of the recurring trends going on at the moment. I think they're definitely taking full force. So whether it's investing in influencers for the influencer marketing stuff, being hyper personal, whether it's, behind the scenes content, whether it's your day-to-day vlogs, whatever it is, influencer marketing is taking storm, and we're here for it. And I guess it's just being relatable and triggering that initial interest for the consumer. Because like you say, hotel lifestyle, which fits under the lifestyle category, that's what it's all about. A consumer isn't going to click book on your website if they don't feel like they can relate to your morals and values. So making sure that you are emphasizing them and reiterating them in a creative way. Not just reading the about page anymore. But we're beyond that.
Yes, exactly. And that content piece for me is so important. How rich is our imagery? How rich is our
brand photography?
All of those things, it plays such a key role in our marketing space.
Yeah, I think it's definitely about capturing a confident brand in and out, isn't it? Whether it's brand photography and videography and then different varying pieces of content, it's just splashing all of that with your brand on it and making sure that you are standing up for your brand in that way. So so interesting to have you on board today. You were one of the first guests that we introduced for kind of hotel marketing. So as you go forward, it'd be nice to sit down with some more like-minded people like yourself. But thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Anna. It was lovely meeting you. Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and do follow us on our Instagram and LinkedIn at the Bodoni Group. Thanks.